Hello, everybody, and welcome along to the GPVWC Superleague Lights round 14 here at a soaking wet Suzuka. And as you might have seen there, some of the drivers are struggling just a little bit towards the end of this practice session in such wet conditions. My name is Jacob Hancox, and I'll be your commentator for today, alongside Ewan Gale, who makes his glorious return to the commentary box. And we have Tom Stevens on the cameras for us as well. Ewan, how are you doing?
I'm all good. Happy Earth, Wind and Fire Day. Because it is, of course, the 21st of September. But, of course, the one element that isn't involved in that is water, and we've got plenty of it here tonight. So let's see if that carries on through qualifying and the race. But at the moment, it's looking awfully tricky for the drivers out there.
Masterful stuff there. As you can see, we got 3 rounds remaining in the calendar. It's the Japanese Grand Prix today, then the United States and Brazilian Grand Prix will round out the season. And taking a brief look over to the championship standings right now, Matthew Williams sits on 222 points. That's quite a way clear of Michael Ayres, who's second with 174. Then you have Kintai in third, 169. Those are your championship contenders. But it really is starting, well, it's been looking this way for a long time, but it's looking increasingly like Matthew Williams has basically an iron grip on that title.
Yeah, the problem is you get to this sort of race, like we said, is such a difficult track. Suzuka really tests the drivers, and then you have weather like this. This is where disasters can happen. And so he's really got to keep his nose clean, and he, as you said, pretty much confirms where the championship's going. But, you know, Michael Ayres, you've got to remember, didn't start the season. He's come in and he's been absolutely fantastic. So all power to him as well. And both up in the top 5 in practice has just finished as well. Although it was Matteo Keismakers and Deegan Fairclough up at the top of the standings.
Yeah, obviously them finding a little bit of bravery, a little bit of something in the very wet conditions during the practice session. It does seem like things are starting to dry out. It does seem like the weather has cleared up, but there is still quite a lot of standing water out there on the circuit, as you can see. And there is one of the Staxes. Which one is that going to be? Leading the pit lane here. As we begin our qualifying, that is our championship leader, Matthew Williams, getting commenced on his outlap now.
Yeah, so this is a little bit different to what we would usually see on an outlap during qualifying. It's less about tyre temperature, more about just finding the various levels of grip on the circuit. They would have been doing that through practice anyway. As you said, looking as if the weather's turned a little bit, so we'll start to see a dry line emerging throughout the qualifying session. But yeah, so he'll just be trying to find the grip, seeing where he can push the car, not pushing it too much. Like we said, all he's got to do really is keep his nose clean as he absolutely clouts the curb at Degner. That's not taking it easy, Matthew. Calm down.
Yeah, that was a bit of a heart and mouth moment on just the outlap here. Luckily, the wall is very far away at that point of the track, or far away enough, you'd think, in these conditions. But yeah, it's just goes to show how tricky it is out there. But there you could see briefly a shot of the relatively clear blue sky. The sun shining on the Suzuka International Circuit. So it's only a matter of time before all of this rain does get shifted away. And we might be, maybe, towards the end of qualifying, if the rain doesn't come back, we might be getting towards at least intermediate tyre conditions. So these first few laps oughtn't make much of a difference when it comes to the actual standings, but it's important to try and get that banker lap out there, and of course to avoid throwing it in the wall at the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And the problem that they're going to have is that because it's such a narrow track at Suzuka, they do, as he goes through the final chicane there, they're usually trying to maximise the track with the curbs, and obviously you don't want to do that in these conditions. So he's going to come across the line to start his lap now, and I mean, it's an absolutely breathtaking lap at the best of times, let alone when you're hanging on for dear life in these conditions. Through turn 1, you see he's really hugging the apex. Power just forces a bit of oversteer out of turn 1, then into the world famous S's, always gathering the speed up the hill, carry the momentum through. But now you've got to start thinking about Dunlop at the top of the hill as he gets a bit of a slide again. Really nice car control up through the S's though, through Dunlop. Now Degner's the first corner you can really attack on this lap. Throw it in, clip the curb, use the curb on the outside. Very brave in these conditions, really using a lot of the curb, but still getting plenty of traction. Up the hill into the hairpin, one of the best overtaking spots on the track. He goes to the inside, so you'll see plenty of lines through there, I'm sure, especially in these conditions. Now we've got the long winding run up into Spoon. It's not that easy to keep it pinned in these conditions, actually. Now you're picking your braking point. You've got to get as tight to the inside as you can. Don't hit the curb on the outside, you'll go way off into the gravel. He's actually picked this up. It's been a lovely lap. And now we're down into the 130R. I'll pass over to you to finish the lap, but it's been really tidy so far, really impressive from Matthew Williams.
Yeah, absolutely very tidy lap. That was the fastest first sector for most of the time, but it's just actually been taken away by Dino Paolini, who's on intermediates. But a run wide moment there for Williams, but now we get into the Casio Triangle, the last few corners here. Fighting the car just a touch through that final corner to come up across the line and to move just behind Frank Hamming in the end by actually a second. Hamming, another driver who's out there on intermediate tyres. There were a few who rolled the dice to go for intermediates early, and that is working out well for them at the moment. Williams is the fastest of the guys on the full wet tyres. In fact, he's a full 1.4 seconds faster than anyone else on that blue walled tyre. Those on the intermediates are finding just a little bit more there. You can see Deegan Fairclough on your screen struggling very much to get into the pit lane. Ivan Leonov doing a very similar thing. I think these guys were out there on wets. Either they made a mistake or they just realized that this is already intermediate times. I mean, look at that drying line on the track right now.
I mean, it shows how good Matthew Williams' lap was, is that everyone else is in the 141s, 142s on those wet tyres. Sandeep Singh, for example, is, we usually see up the top with Pescara in P7 at the moment, 142.388, so miles off the pace. The Inters are the fastest tyre, but we saw in Austria in the season that actually the intermediates are much more susceptible to mistakes, and we saw so many drivers there going on the intermediate, setting a fast lap, but then spinning and putting it in the wall. So you still got to have the confidence to go on those tyres. The guys who have gone out on those tyres have absolutely been as brave as anything, but then you have a look at Andrzejewski at the moment, P10, 144. He hasn't got the confidence on those tyres yet. He might just be building up. Frank Hamming straight on it and going even faster.
Yeah, Frank Hamming blitzing that previous best lap time to go basically a full second and a bit faster. And Andrzejewski is the only other driver at the moment out there who has completed a lap on intermediate tyres. Dino Paolini was going quickly on his intermediates, but he has since then headed back into the pit lane. In fact, he's just sitting there in the pit lane. So evidently he made a mistake on that lap, and there are a couple of other drivers on Inters who haven't been able to complete lap times either. So that just proves, once again, how tough it is for some of these drivers. Here is Matteo Kiersmakers, the Belgian in the Zederek. Always one to watch when it comes to qualifying. He's had some very, very good qualifying performances indeed. It tends to go a little bit awry in the race, but he has done well enough, at least in terms of netting those points, to manage 6th place in the overall drivers' standings at the moment. He managed a 4th place finish last time out at Singapore as well.
Yeah, he did. He's one of them. He's consistent, and then there's always some sort of incident, as you say, in the race that drops him down. But qualifying, he's always up in the top 6, 7. So let's see what he can do. Fastest in practice on the full wet. Now he's on the intermediate, as so many people are now. So people realise that that's the tyre to be on, and he's gone round at Dunlop. He's done well actually to keep that out of the inside wall. So round at Dunlop, that's his first lap gone. Still 8 minutes and 30 to go, so no panic.
Yeah, round at Dunlop, a bit of a classic. So it's a corner you don't really have to think very much about in the dry conditions, but in the wet conditions, it becomes much more of a factor. And we'll see a replay there of exactly what happened, or at least the aftermath with Matteo Kiersmakers. Just getting going again. Thankfully, no cars in and around to block or to crash into him or anything like that, because of course these are private qualifying sessions. Every driver has their own track all to themselves to avoid issues with traffic and so on.
And there you go, he just got slightly wide out of the little tram lines that you get in the wet onto the curb, and that just lost the traction for him at the rear, so that's why he went round. It looks like he's gone round again as well. Is that a Spoon? I think it is, yeah, so down at Spoon he's gone round. And that might be just running wide again. So not an ideal start after everything we said about consistency for Matteo Kiersmakers. It looks like Janis Voldborn's gone top now ahead of Kintai, Hamming down to 3rd, and the track's just evolving and evolving. It's going to be which of the fast guys are starting their lap the latest really in these track conditions.
Yeah, you'd have to imagine so, unless the rain's going to come back again, but it doesn't seem like it for the time being. Here's Michael Ayres, crosses the line, goes into 2nd, just about a quarter of a second away from Janis Voldborn, who's still looking pretty good up at the top at the moment. He's been a feast or famine driver so far this season for Razor GP. A couple of podium place finishes, and outside of that, I'm not sure he's even managed to finish in the top 10 very often. apart from those two podiums. So it's either been fantastic for Yannis Volborn or it's been not so great. One race where he did do very well and did manage a podium was back in Austria, one of the wet races we've seen so far this season. So he may well be one to watch as things are going on. This may well be an indication of what we can expect in the future in these middle stages now of qualifying.
Yeah, Matthew Williams is flying. Just while we were talking about Volborn, he's gone fastest in Sector 1, and now he's coming through Spoon to complete Sector 2. So Matthew Williams straight back on it as Leonov goes up on top by another 4:10. So yeah, it's almost inconsequential who's going fastest at the moment, because they're just dropping the times as the time goes on. So Williams, we expect to go top here with 2 purple sectors, and he should, as he keeps it all clean through the final sector, go top. And he does.
Indeed he does. By a relatively comfortable margin as well, over half a second, separating himself and Ivan Leon. Matthias Jubinski just came in about a second shy of Matthew Williams' time to go into third. Here's Michael Ayres, one of those drivers who is, well, the heirs apparent, I suppose, to Matthew Williams in the championship. And he moves into second appropriately enough, but not very close still to Williams' time. So that is still looking like a very good lap time that Williams has put in. But as you mentioned, with the track conditions improving considerably, we can't read too much into these times right now. What I am seeing is a few drivers starting to contemplate dry tyres here. And I believe heading out on outlaps, Yannis Volborn and Pascal Polenz, the 2 Razor drivers, I believe are currently out on track on dry tyres.
That's strange. I'm not sure about that one. I mean, it might be a master stroke, but you just got to keep yourself in the game at the moment. You've got 5 minutes left. So, yeah, not too sure about that one. I heard that little dad joke as well, so that's a 5 reach in the jar from both of us tonight. But yeah, I think you're right. I think Kintai might be out there as well. So we'll see, just double check to make sure that's right, but Kintai might be out there. So maybe they are getting getting confidence. The problem is as soon as you do what Kiersmakers did at Dunlop and get slightly offline, you go straight to the beach. So massive gamble with 4:30 to go, 4:40 to go. You just got to put on the right tyres at the moment, surely.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the dry line there. And the thing is, if that part of the track is bone dry, which it looks like it almost is, as long as you stay on that part of the track and that part of the track alone, soft tires or dry tires, sorry, they're grand. They'll do everything you want. But instead of having a track which is, several meters wide, you've got a track which is 1.5 meters, 2 meters wide at best. So it definitely limits your ability to really push the car, you'd have to say. You'd be on your tiptoes around the lap. But if you can make it work, then all power to you. There's Matteo Kiersmakers missing a rear wing. He's not one of the drivers who's gone for dry tyres quite yet, and he is still yet to register a proper lap time in this qualifying session. Only just over about 3 3/4 minutes remaining. He needs to get a bit of a wiggle on there as Pascal Polenz goes to the top of the times on dry tyres.
Yeah, supreme bravery then from those guys to jump first, but they're going to be sort of ahead of the curve now and probably drop down as everyone else goes onto the dries as it keeps improving. Volborn, there you go, you just got onto the wet on the inside and got a bit squirrely under braking, so that's the risk that you run. But actually, as you can see, they are faster at the moment, so yeah, fair play to the guys for spotting that. I wouldn't have seen that at all. I would have stayed on the inters, but I'm a conservative driver. I'm not as ballsy as some of these people are. So, yeah, Yannis Volborn looking very nice, faster than his teammate at the moment. Into the 130 yard, got to keep this on the dry stuff, and he does.
He used the curb as well. He used the curb through there. He used it through Spoon, but he's just got the confidence to do that. Going to go ahead, bump over the curves in the Casio Triangle again, and it just doesn't seem to be unsettling his car as much as you might expect in these conditions. Now coming up towards the line, and Yannis Volborn goes to the top by a whole load of time there. 2.3 seconds ahead of his teammate Pascal Polenz, and it's the 2 Razors at the very top of the order at the moment. Then you have Deegan Fairclough third. He is still on intermediate tyres. Matthew Williams is currently sitting in the pit lane, but he has got a set of softs strapped on, and he's just about starting his outlap now. Here comes Pascal Polenz again. Looked like he wasn't improving in the middle sector. Dowd Tapper.
Missing front wing.
Missing front wing. Yeah, that'll definitely prevent your improvement there at the middle sector.
Big problem for Deegan Fairclough is he'd only just finished his fly lap. I don't think he's going to be able to get back to the pits, get back out, go around on an out lap if he wants to dry tyres, and finish the lap. So he could find himself right towards the back of the grid if people overtake him on the dry tyres.
Now, Sandeep Singh is another driver in exactly the same predicament right now. Moritz Kropp down in 23rd as well. He's only just completed the second sector of the lap he's currently on, and he is also on those intermediate tyres. So all three of those drivers look like they will not be able to get onto dry tyres and start a lap before this qualifying session is over. And they are just at the mercy of everyone else making mistakes at that point. Now, Yannis Volborn, he's not making any mistakes right now. He's gone purple twice again on this lap. He's first already, but he's about to extend that margin by the look of things as he rounds the final corner, comes up to cross the line with a minute left on the clock. And he does improve even further by another second. Hygo Poom also just shot up into second position, but he is still 2.5 seconds away from Yannis Volborn.
Yeah, a bit more tyre temperature. He's obviously done one more run on those tyres already, Yannis, so that might help him at the end of this session. Can he stay ahead of all of the fast chargers? We're expecting Williams, we're expecting Ayres, we're expecting Tapper and Leonov and Hammond and Lalu and Kintai. All of those drivers are expecting to get up to the top end of the grid. But Volborn's put a marker down. He said, come and get it.
Absolutely, and that's a lot of time for these guys to chase right now. On his next lap, Volborn's had a mediocre first sector, so that is him done. That 1:31.4 will be the best he can offer in this qualifying session. Pascal Schmidt comes closest of anyone thus far, but he is still over 3/4 of a second away from Yannis Volborn's lap time there as he moves into second position. Now Matteo Kiersmaker's yet to register a lap time, but he's got a purple middle sector. His first sector was about a second down on Yannis Volborn's best first sector. But that middle sector is looking nice. Maybe a slight mistake on the exit of the Casio Triangle there as Jack Mayer just moved up into third. What can Matteo Kiersmakers do as he crosses the line? He takes third position away. Just about a second still shy of Yannis Volborn. Saracino goes into fourth. And now Matthew Williams, he's about to head through 130R here.
Yeah, and he's absolutely flying as well. 6/10 up on Schmidt through Sector 1, which tells you all you need to know. Then he's gone purple through Sector 2. Massive lap time coming from Matthew Williams as he aims to put himself on top of the grid.
This could well be the pole time from Matthew Williams. And it is for now as he goes to the top, displacing Yannis Volborn at the death of qualifying. And now who is out there? Who is left to challenge? Alessandro Quintai is out there. Dawa Tapper, he's got a purple first sector by the look of things. How is that looking? Yeah, it's a very good first sector time indeed. 33.5. That's about a 10th up on what Matthew Williams did in the opening sector of the lap. Michael Ayres has just gone purple in the middle sector. His first sector wasn't too far away. He crosses the line and only goes into second. But look how close the margin was between himself and Matthew Williams. Now it's up to Dawa Tapper. Thomas Harvey at the very end, he's currently down in 25th, and he has just set the best middle sector of anyone by a long shot. Dawa Tapper goes fastest, crosses the line to the top, and immediately gets displaced by Thomas Harvey with a 1:30.827. Right at the end of qualifying, it's Harvey and Tapper who top the order. Polenz just managed to sneak in a lap time for 5th position. And with that, I think we have our qualifying all wrapped up. Thomas Harvey taking pole for TR Bluvos Motorsports.
Some absolutely stunning driving in there, all the way down the grid. Everyone absolutely on top of their game. I mean, even looking at someone like Matteo Kiersmaker's issues on his first two runs, still comes back in conditions like that to go into the top 10. Leonov doing really nicely. Hammerlink P13 seemed to come from nowhere. He was 5th at one point. And then Williams and Ayres, who looked like they'd gone way ahead of everyone, getting displaced by Harvey and Tapper. Superb qualifying session.
So there we have it. Thomas Harvey at the top, Dawa Tapper then second. Then you have championship leader Matthew Williams third with Ayres fourth. Polenz and Volborn, the two Razors, 5th and 6th. Kinsai 7th, Schmidt 8th, Kiersmakers 9th, and Ivan Leonov sitting in 10th. They'll be followed by Frank Hamming, who was quick at the beginning, in 11th. Giuseppe Saracino, 12th. Max Hammerlink in his first race of the season for Neptune there in 13th. Jack Mayer down in 14th on the grid for Stax. Dino Paolini, 15th. Hygo Poom, Andrzejewski, Menno Klont, Deegan Fairclough, and Sandeep Singh. Matthias Zubinski 21st. Jukka-Pekka Lalu down in 22nd. Disaster of him. Same for Amari Watson in 23rd. Stefano Zanrosso 24th. Moritz Kropp 25th. April Carlsvard 26th. And Tom Voss didn't manage to set a lap time. He'll be starting 27th for HM Engineering. So with that, our qualifying session comes to its conclusion. And while the drivers get warmed up for just a little bit here, we'll head to a quick break. We'll be back with you in about 10 minutes' time when the race gets underway. right, welcome back, everybody, to the race itself, or about to be the race itself here in the GPVWC Superleague Lights Round 14 Japanese Grand Prix. We have Thomas Harvey on pole. He has won one race thus far this season. Alongside him is Dower Tapper, whose best result so far this season is one single third-place finish. My name is Jacob Hancox, and joining me in the commentary box for the race is Ewan Gale. How are you looking forward to this one then, Ewan?
Well, if I am on pole or in that train of cars down the left-hand side of the track, I am very happy. If I'm on an even numbered grid spot, I'm not very happy because it's still quite wet, and you're going to be starting on six, you'd imagine, because okay, you're going to have a poor start, but then the tyre to be on is going to be slick, isn't it? We probably won't have any overtaking unless you're really brave, but we did see through qualifying actually a lot of people were able to attack the slippery apexes even on those slick tyres. So yeah, this is going to be one where I think it's just the brain is going to win you the race, not your feet and your hands and your talent. It's just, yeah, of course your talent, but I mean, you've got to think your way through this race. We saw in Austria earlier on in the season that you know, the guys who made mistakes didn't win, and the guys who didn't make mistakes were on the podium. So it's going to be one of them. It's going to be exciting. I think we're in for a cracker. We've got a mixed up grid, so just can't wait to get going now. Yeah,
absolutely. And you can see there, just in front of you, the evidence of what you were saying about the left-hand side of the track relative to the right-hand side. You can see that dry line all the way down the very left extremity of the circuit. And you can see the grid hatchings, which are mostly within that dry line. And then on the other side, just absolutely wet as you like for the grid hatchings on the right-hand side. So that's going to be an issue for some of these drivers when we get underway here in Suzuka. We'll be starting the formation lap in just a moment's time. And that will at least give some of the drivers on the right-hand side of the grid an opportunity to try and do something about the state of their grid slots.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even slightly different, is it, either? It's quite... Well, it's wet and dry, isn't it? It's the only way to put it. So let's see how they do cope with it. I imagine it's going to be a freight train down the left-hand side, down the racing line, and something that more resembles a tugboat on the right-hand side. So, yeah, it's a shame because, like, especially if you're someone like Dower or Michael Ayres or Jannis Volborn, you know, you put a cracking lap in to be second or fourth or sixth, and then you're probably going to lose out at the start. But, you know, that's how the cookie crumbles this racing.
Yeah, now, as we get underway for the formation lap, and you can see Thomas Harvey on pole with Dower Tapper, season best qualifying alongside. Matthew Williams, championship leader, is third, with his main championship rival Michael Ayres there in fourth. Behind them are the two Razors, Pascal Polenz out-qualifying Jannis Volborn in 5th and 6th. Kintai, the third championship rival, in 7th. Pascal Schmidt managing a respectable 8th for TTF Racing. Matteo Kiersmakers down in 9th at the end of qualifying. Ivan Leonov just rounding out that top 10. Frank Hamming 11th and Giuseppe Saracino up in 12th. Good qualifying for Max Hammerlink in his first race of the season for Neptune in 13th. Jack Mayer down in 14th for Stax. That'll be a touch disappointing. Dino Paolini 15th. Hygo Poom 16th. And 17th and 18th, we have Pavel Andrzejewski and Menno Klont. That's a relatively high grid slot for a Cosmo Powerworks car. Deegan Fairclough 19th and Sandeep Singh 20th. Both of them will be gutted by the way that qualifying went. Matthias Jubinski 21st. Jukka Pekalalu, another driver who will be bitterly disappointed with 22nd. Amari Watson, same story, 23rd. And Stefano Zanrosso there in 24th. Moritz Kropp 25th of E12 Crossfire. April Carlsvard in the second Cosmo 26th. And Tom Voss, who didn't set a lap time in qualifying, in 27th and last on the grid. And there you can see they're just about halfway around their formation lap now. And looking at the tyres, I'm not quite sure how reliable the information is at this moment in time, but it does look like a fair few drivers have opted for the medium tyres outside of the top 10 here.
Yeah, and that's smart, I think. I mean, you'll obviously lose a little bit off the line, and as your tyres get up to temp, it'll carry you further into the race as the track conditions get even better for these slick tyres. So I think that's a very smart option if you're outside the top 10. Obviously, the guys in the top 10 have to start on the tyres they completed their fastest lap in qualifying with. That, of course, will be the soft tyres. That's why they're all in soft tyres in the top 10.
So there's Thomas Harvey rounding them onto the grid. He is one of our 4 race winners so far this season. Matthew Williams, Michael Ayres, Alessandro Quintai, and Thomas Harvey. And Dow Taff will be hoping that he can add his name to that list from second on the grid. But with that grid slot on the right-hand side, as you mentioned, that is going to be very difficult for him to do.
It's actually interesting looking. There's actually 2 wheels of everyone on the left-hand side in that wet as well. So maybe that'll equalise the problem out. There's a big puddle going across the racing line onto the pit straight as well. So watch out for that through the race.
All right, as Tom Voss lines up then at the back of the grid. We have everyone in place and ready. One car starting from the pit lane. I believe that's Sandeep Singh in the Pescara. So he has opted for a pit lane start here in Japan. As the lights now begin to illuminate here in Suzuka. 5 lights on. And we are underway, and already you can see what a disastrous start that's going to be for Dower Tapper. And it's Matthew Williams already challenging for the lead against Thomas Harvey. He's on the wet line, though. Tries to sneak over to the dry line, but Thomas Harvey manages to claim first position away. A bit of bumping down further back. There is going to be one of the Zederics going along with the... that's going to be Dower Tapper struggling with one of those Razor cars there. And now it's actually Tapper's teammate who's the next one to have a go in, Matteo Kiersmacher. So Tapper down to 7th already off of the start from second on the grid. Did see some yellow flags as well, but it seems like most everyone has been able to get away cleanly at the start.
Yeah, I can't tell you how good a start that is from everyone. I think it was Moritz Kropp who might have gone round. He got up into the top 20 at one point from his grid position, but he's down to the back behind Sandeep Singh. But superb skill from everyone to get away. I know Tapper was slightly slow, but I was expecting some spins off the line, maybe as everyone tried to fight for position on the drier line. But yeah, they all managed to get through pretty much unscathed, and even Kropp is not too far off the back of the pack. So yeah, really, really impressive stuff from everybody out there. Poland's in P3. Already behind Williams, but chasing him.
Yeah, I tell you what you said about that left-hand side of the grid, it's proved so... I've never seen something make itself so well proven to be true, because the guys in first, second, third, and fourth, coming towards the end of this first lap, they started first, third, fifth, and 7th on the grid, respectively. So odd numbers, definitely the ones to be on at this start of the race. Looks like Pavel Andrzejewski has had a trouble on this lap. He's fallen down to the very back of the order, but at the front, it's Thomas Harvey, who leads the way by a relatively comfortable margin already, almost a second down to Matthew Williams, who himself has about a second's worth of gap to Pascal Poland's third. Then Quintai, Ayres, Volborn, Tapper, Kiersmacher, Hamming, and Leonov rounding out the top 10. Then you got Max Hammerlink. He's the furthest forward driver who started on mediums rather than softs.
Yeah, Max is having a really good night so far. The problem that everyone had on the right-hand side of the grid, in addition to the wetness anyway, is the fact that because Tapper was so slow, they were having to put steering lock into the traction phase of the start, and that's the nightmare when you've got a wet track. You're struggling for traction as it is, let alone then having to feather it even more to make sure you're spinning as you try and go around the slow moving Zedric in front of you. So yeah, that's why I thought everyone did so well to get off the line with everything that was going on. The spray was kicking up as well. Quintai under pressure now from Michael Ayres, trying to make up for losing the positions off the wet side of the grid.
And these two really don't want to be the ones fighting each other. Ideally, for them, they'd be working together to try and take down Matthew Williams, but they've still got Pascal Polands between themselves and the championship leader. And it's going to be very hard to try and get past Pascal Polands in these basically still mostly wet conditions with just this drying line, not really an alternate line in the braking zones that you can take to try and make that move stick. So if Polands can't match the pace of Matthew Williams in these coming few laps, it could be a disaster as far as Quintai and Ayres are concerned.
Yeah, all they've got to do is hang on till the first pit stop window, or possibly the only pit stop window, depending on what strategy these guys are doing. But I think to go for a move at the moment is just crazy, to be honest, because it's so wet offline. I think your best strategy really is to wait for the pit stops. Maybe try and either go long or go short, depending on who around you is fast. And then if you need to make a dive bomb at some point, then you can use maybe fresher tyres get close through Dunlop, through the Degners, and then send one down the inside into the hairpin. Let's see how that plays out.
Yeah, there is the hairpin. Kintai, you can see, was relatively close behind Polenz, but not close enough to think about that move into the hairpin. And it's looking down the order. Maybe Deegan Fairclough might be the driver thinking about making a move. He tends to be not exactly gun-shy in the cockpit, and he has been very close behind Hygo Poom for the last couple of laps. Always just about between 2 and 3/10 of a second behind the Estonian driver. You can see it there on the timing tower. I think he might actually be having a go. Look how close he is. He's just nailed to the gearbox of that TTF racing car. But as you mentioned, you can be that much faster, that close to the rear wing, and still not really have a proper overtaking opportunity. But if anyone's going to try it, it's going to be Deegan Fairclough, and here he goes. Looking for what will be the outside. He tries to bully Hygo Poom onto the wet line and forces him onto the curb there. And that is the move done. Now Hygo Poom's in trouble from Omari Watson, who's trying to capitalize on the Estonians' misfortunes. And despite braking on the wet line, Omari Watson almost managed to pull off that move. Now he's got tangled up in the background with Matthias Subinski. Did they both manage to make it through? I can't quite tell from the camera shot.
I think they did. They just lost a load of time. Zabinski got through, and somehow Watson kept out of the wall. Great car control. That was stunning from Deegan Fairclough. Really, really was. He was getting squeezed to the outside by Hygo, who was just not giving up the ghost. But Deegan Fairclough absolutely committed around the outside of 130. That was impressive. As goes around Kintai.
Oh, and he hits the wall pretty heavily as well. Alessandro Kintai will be able to get going again. You've got to wonder whether there's damage now to that Pescara, and not only the damage to the car, but the damage to his race. He's down now into 13th position. That is 9 cars in between where he was and where he is. And we've seen already how hard it is to overtake here.
Yeah, and as much as we sort of know where the Drivers' Championship's going, disaster for Pescara in the Constructors' race. Here he goes, and into Degner, and imagine he's just going to get wide. Yeah, he does. We were saying this in qualifying, gets wide over the little rumble strips in the wet and just slides. It's a classic Degner crash. Absolutely classic. We see it so often. And a big mistake, and like I said, Pescara now, Singh down the back, starting from the pit lane, and Kintai down in, 14th now. Absolutely disastrous. That's Mayer through, so both stacks ahead of both Pescaras.
Yeah, and Pescara entered this race with a 19-point lead at the top of the championship over Stax is behind. There's Dower Tapper. Oh, and they were really rubbing wheels there, but he manages to make it work. Yannis Volborn going wide and onto the wet line. And you can see how much of a difference that made as Dower Tapper's just been able to drop him for dead. Into 5th position he goes in the Zedric, making up for those lost positions off of that very poor start.
Yeah, as good a move as that is, I think Yannis has stopped him from crashing, by giving him the room. He sort of didn't need to, but he's sort of taken one for the team and gone onto the wet patch, because that was seriously close, so they might have even had a bit of contact. So Dower up into P5, Yannis down to P6. This is going to be the view you want. Beautiful replay getting shown. So he's down in the wet stuff. He's going to get stuck. Actually, he was far enough alongside. Was a little bit of a tangle of wing, but of wheels, but he was far enough alongside. No problem with that. Dower Tapper into P5.
Yeah, nicely done then by Dower Tapper. And that is one thing that's interesting about the turn 1 down here, is because the pit lane exit is so late, there is an alternate braking zone into turn 1 that is a dry line from when cars have been leaving that pit lane. So that might help for overtakes along the lines of the one we just saw from Dower Tapper. And there you can see the dry line is widening around the circuit as well. More yellows in sector 2. I think that's Matthias Subinski who's falling down the order. He's gone down into 22nd in that PLS car. So that's a shame for him, but back up towards the front, it's Michael Ayres, very close behind Pascal Polenz indeed. Not close enough to make the move on this occasion.
No, there isn't really a braking zone into turn 1, but what being up alongside like Tapper was, as Saracino tries to do the same thing, further up alongside, and they're still on side, trying not to hit each other. We've got yellow flags in turn 1 as well. I don't know what's happened there. It might be Dower Tapper actually. Dower Tapper plummeting, so I don't know where he's gone. Somewhere in sector 1, but he's gone way down to P20 and still got his DNF.
Out of the race, Dower Tapper. So after that start on the front row of the grid, it started to go wrong immediately off the line when he lost those positions, trying to start it in that very wet part of the track. And now we'll see exactly how he met his ultimate fate in this race, or at least what happened once he had met.
It's exit turn 1, look. So You can see up in the distance everyone going up into the S's, so yeah, he's probably just gone a little bit wide into the wet. Yeah, onto the curb, look, and just sent the rear round, so it's quite a fairly big hit as well. That's why he's out of the race. So Dale Tapper out of the race, and yeah, two fairly innocuous, simple mistakes from Kintai and Tapper have led to big problems for both of them.
Yeah, they were on course to be two of our main contenders in this race. Looks like Andrzejewski is also out of the race. Moritz Kropp has also DNF'd. Those guys exited the race a couple of laps ago. Here now, Michael Ayres going across the water to find the extra dry line into turn one, and he manages to do so, taking the position away from Pascal Polenz, who relinquishes his grip on third. Michael Ayres now free to start closing down on Matthew Williams, who's only 1.2 seconds ahead of him. Make that 1.1 seconds. He's already getting there. He's within a second already, closing straight in on Matthew Williams, who cannot live with the pace of Thomas Harvey at the very front of this race at the moment.
Thomas Harvey's got something sorted out. I'm really happy he has made that move, because it gives me a chance to go back to my point that I was making before Dawa put it in the barriers, is that there isn't really a braking zone into turn one unless you're on that inside line. So in the dry, usually the guy on the outside will just sweep around. We've seen Kimi Räikkönen do it in real life in F1, but with the wetness outside, as we saw with Tapper, as soon as you get in the wet, you're in trouble. So it's forcing those people on the outside line to hit the brakes, and that's what's allowing that move to be done down the inside. So if you can muscle your way alongside and use that dry strip coming out of the pits, as you mentioned, Jacob, then it's giving people the opportunity to make that move into turn one. We'd usually see the hairpin as the main overtaking spot, but because you can't really follow through Degner in these conditions, it's actually turn one that's becoming the main spot.
We are then taking a look at the progress or lack thereof that Alessandro Kintai is making. Right behind him, that's Deegan Fairclough, who's really pushing out there at the moment. Deegan, of course, in that qualifying session, was caught out on the wrong tyres at the wrong time. Didn't get to set a lap on soft tyres in qualifying. Only managed to do so on intermediates. And as a result, he qualified down in about 20th position. Further out, that's Saracino looking to make yet more progress. He is on the medium tyres, Giuseppe Saracino, and he is having a go at Yannis Volborn, who's been slowly losing positions, really struggling at the start of this race. You can see there's already a 6-second gap between himself and Matteo Kiersmakers in 7th position.
Yeah, the more that Volborn gets pushed out onto that wet bit of track, the more his tyres are going to struggle with temperature. Look at Michael Ayres. He is like a man possessed at the moment. He is flying. He's already up to the back of Matthew Williams and able to take a much tighter line and still carry the speed through than the stacks ahead of him. Just going to point out, Deegan Fairclough's absolutely flying. His fastest lap is way quicker than anyone else on track. So what could have been for Deegan if he was on the right tyres at the right time in qualifying? He's stuck behind Kintai at the moment, who are up in P12 and P13. But Ayres has caught Williams as if Williams is driving through treacle.
Yeah, absolutely he has. You can see just how close he's able to get to the Stax's rear wing. But he can't brake late enough into the Casio triangle without that dry line on the inside. So he has to just sit comfortably and wait maybe for the opportunity into turn one. He's already made one move down here in this race so far on Pascal Polenz a few laps ago. He knows it's a possibility, and he's closing right in on Matthew Williams. Goes to the inside line. Williams tries to get the switch back, but cannot find anything. Michael Ayres easily moving up into 2nd position, and Matthew Williams with nothing to fight back with.
No, because Saracino looking to the outside, so good defence there from Yannis Volborn, who's already been mugged down the inside into turn one before. He didn't want that happening again. Saracino unlucky that he was the second to come along in that case. But yeah, Michael Ayres, textbook move again into T1, and you know he's only been 2/10 faster than Thomas Harvey on most laps. He lost plenty of time behind Matthew Williams. Let's see what he can do now he's in free air.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not really been able to show his own pace thus far in this race. And now he has a big opportunity to do so. On that last lap into turn one, Deegan Fairclough was able to get past Alessandro Kintai. He is now into 12th position and already straight onto the rear wing of Jack Mayer, who's currently in 11th. So Deegan Fairclough still just absolutely pushing like a bat out of hell at the moment. He is on soft tyres. Mayer and Saracino are the two guys on the mediums who are furthest forward. Here we see the move on the wet line into Spoon, but Deegan Fairclough does not mind. He makes use of the tyre advantage he has over Jack Mayer and moves into 11th. And now Mayer, after that, has been put offline, and that's going to give Alessandro Quintai the opportunity. He looks for the outside of 130R, forcing Mayer to the wet part of the track, onto the curbs. Somehow they managed to both brave it out through there, and you can see Mayer braking later because he now has the dry line pushed wide by Alessandro Quintai. He'll regain the track, and still they'll be side by side, but Quintai has more momentum and takes 12th position away for the time being. Straight over to the right-hand side of the track they go, trying to break the toe is Alessandro Quintai, and he's just about done enough to force Jack Mayer to relinquish any attempt at 11th. There's a car off in the front, and that's Deegan Fairclough. He was the fastest driver on track, and now he's no longer on track at all.
Same story as so often with him. He is often one of the fastest on track, and he does often make a small mistake in difficult conditions. Such a shame, but again, it's just that easy mistake of going wide into turn one. Let's go back to his move. This is absolutely stunning stuff down the inside on the wet track into Spoon. Absolutely no fear at all. But then he's got up to turn one and made the mistake. I imagine it's going to be the same as Dawa, where he's just gone on to the wet bit of track. He did slide. It looks as if he may have caught it. There you go. Yeah, he did catch it, but too late and into the barrier.
Yeah, hefty hit into the barrier for Deegan Fairclough. 0 to 0 stuff, all in the matter of the second half of lap 9 here in the Japanese Grand Prix. Now we are on to lap 10, and you can see here's Michael Ayres, who's currently down in 7th position. That's not where we left him. Michael Ayres has fallen down to 7th position in this race. He was in 2nd.
He was, and I was just about to point out that Yannis Volborn pitted just before we saw Deegan Fairclough skidding off the track. Now his teammate Pascal Polenz is into the pit from what was 3rd after Ayres' problem, and Ayres is into the pit as well. So was that a tyre issue? Was that tyre wear issue rather than a tyre issue, or did he simply make a mistake and slide off? Yeah, interesting, because he was flying, and I was going to say he was catching Thomas Harvey, but actually Thomas Harvey did a pretty stonking lap of 131.5. He's followed that up with a 131.6, so maybe he's decided that now's the time to go. 7.5 second gap to Matthew Williams is quite outstanding from Thomas Harvey.
Yeah, that is really, really special stuff, actually, from Thomas Harvey thus far in this race. Managed to get onto pole position, but that was only at the very death of qualifying they managed that. I was not expecting as dominant a performance as we're currently seeing from Thomas Harvey. And he is looking to try and make it 2 wins on the season. Currently sitting 7th in the driver's standings, despite the fact that he's only participated in about half of the races, maybe just over half of the races thus far this season. He has been, in terms of points per race, right up there with some of the fastest drivers.
Yeah, he has. So, yeah, I mean, it's not surprising that he can go that fast as you said, but 7.7 now. I mean, it's just growing and growing. He's got so much confidence in these conditions. Just going back to Michael Ayres, that problem, he's come out of the pits behind Yannis Volborn, or he's still plummeting. So obviously Volborn had the fresher tyres to push on for a lap, but Ayres has really been cost by that. Whatever happened, Leonov up in 4th, troubling Hamming, and here's this train of cars: Paolini, Mayer, Poom, Hamlink, and I think Poom's actually got ahead of Hamlink there. Schmidt pits from the top 10.
Last time around, Alessandro Quintai was the fastest driver on circuit. He is still trying to recover his race after an early spin and brush with the wall in Degner 2. Michael Ayres has also at some point spun around in this race, or of course had some kind of issue. And both of the guys who are 2nd and 3rd in the championship have fallen by the wayside in the beginning of this race. Matthew Williams, he has stayed on course, if a touch steady compared to Thomas Harvey in the lead. He has nevertheless still kept it on the black stuff, and that's what's most important in these kinds of circumstances. We're watching on board with Haigo Poom, who currently sits in 10th position, in this race. He is one of 4 drivers in this train, currently being led by Dino Paolini in the Royal Blue Racing car. You can see it just 2 cars up the road.
Yeah, big train now starting to form, but of course people are on different tyre strategies at this point. People are going to start pitting as Poom goes wide for a spoon and gets mugged by Matt Hammerling. So a good alert driving there from the Neptune up into the top 10 on this first race. So really good stuff from Matt Hammerling.
Yeah, nice to see a Neptune back in the race. They've been struggling with having cars in the races in these last couple, but here they have Max Hammerlink driving for them, and he's been doing very well on Assetto Corsa of late, taking his talents to R Factor, and they're not looking too shaky whatsoever. Currently sitting 10th in this race, but on those medium tyres, 4th of the drivers who started the race on that set of tyres. So he might well have something to say towards the end of this race for some really significant points. And as I praise him, he goes off of the circuit, falling down there into 13th position.
So if we've done that to Keersmacher's, Faircroft, and Hammerlink. So if you're listening, which you're not, obviously, because you're driving, but try and do something before we say that you're doing well, because then it makes us look better. Yeah, not too much time lost though, only back down to P13, only about 2 or 3 seconds lost. Not too much of a disaster, you can keep going from there. And of course, he's on that alternate tyre strategy.
Yeah, of the drivers who have pitted so far, Pascal Polenz leads the way, but Michael Ayers has now found his way past Janus Volborn and Pascal Schmidt. He is into 17th place, and he is currently second of those who have entered the pit lane so far, and he's just set a purple first sector. That first sector time almost a full second faster than the likes of Thomas Harvey and Matthew Williams at the front. So if he can go multiple seconds a lap faster, as he's on track to at the moment with this lap, Harvey and Williams, they're going to have to think about pitting quite soon, lest they be undercut, even despite the huge loss of position and loss of time that Michael Ayers had a few laps ago.
Yeah, well, just looking through the field, say Pascal Polenz, who of course was third behind Williams, he just did a 1:31.8, which is his fastest lap of race, 1.5 faster than Williams. So Williams is in danger of losing out now. Of course, he'll have a massive tyre delta with fresher tyres when he does eventually pit. Harvey's got that buffer that he can allow his strategy just to play out. He's got such a big lead, it doesn't matter that much. The problem that Ayers has got now is that he probably would have been challenging the lead had he not had whatever issue he did. Now he's behind Polenz on track, so that's his problem. He's past Schmidt, he's past Volborn. So that's 2 of the guys that he fell behind disposed of, which is good news, because we're only on lap 14. The problem is he's got a decent gap. He's got, what, 5 seconds to Zabinski and Klont. That's before they start pitting. So, yeah, a big gap for him to make up. Or whatever happened, it must have been fairly major to lose that amount of time.
Absolutely, but he's setting about the right way in terms of making up that time. He was fastest of the race so far last time around with a 1:31.0. That was 1.5-ish seconds faster than Thomas Harvey, and more like 2.3 seconds faster than Matthew Williams, who is now in the pit lane, along with Frank Hamming. Both of them were running inside the top 5. Now into the pits they go for a set of medium tyres in both cases. You'd have to imagine. There you see them on Matthew Williams' car. He will get going again just ahead of Frank Hamming. And where will he be? Who will be in and around him out there on circuit? Where's Pascal Polenz? There's Pascal Polenz, and he is now ahead into de facto second position in this race. And a big gap down to Matthew Williams as well that he currently has to play with. Unfortunately for Michael Ayers, his heroics were not enough to get him within touching distance, not even really close to being within touching distance of Matthew Williams. So the gravity of his mistake earlier on, once again, putting paid to major chances for him.
Yeah, Polenz now though has to get past Hammerlink and Singh and Lally ASAP, because Williams on those fresher tyres will be much faster. The question is if Williams gets up to the back of Pascal Polenz, how much of a risk is he willing to take to get through? He doesn't need to make that risk from a driver's championship point of view, but from a team's championship point of view, it's hugely important that he gets every point he can for stacks. Like you said, a deficit to Pescara coming into this race. Pescara hitting trouble, he's got to make the most of it.
Yeah, Pascal Polenz has participated in 7 races thus far this season. In those 7 races, he's managed to scrabble together 4 points for Razor GP. As things stand, he's on track for a second place finish and to more than quadruple his current points total. So this could be a very, very big race indeed for Pascal Polenz, the way things are currently going. Long way to go yet, of course, But this is shaping up nicely for the German in the race. So there's yellows in Sector 2. Not sure who those are for, as Sandeep Singh is currently in the pit lane.
Yeah, Sandeep pitting, and so that's 15 laps into a medium-sized stint, but of course he's been absolutely caning that car around from the back of the grid and made nice progress as well. Kersmacher's then still on the back of Ivan Leonov. This of course isn't for P2, it's P2 on the road at the moment, but they still need to make their pit stops. Who was that off?
Not sure, they didn't move up position, so it's the lapped car. I think that's Stefano Zanrosso there in the HG Esports Blue Bolt who was off on the run towards Spoon. I don't see who else it could have been. And maybe that was just Zanrosso trying to get as out of the way as possible.
Yeah, it might have been actually, because it's a weird place to be off unless he already had damage. So
in fact, he's just DNF from the race, so maybe it wasn't so intentional from Stefano. But yeah, very weird place to be off.
Leonov wide into the final chicane. That's going to give Kersmachers a massive chance, and in fact, Leonov pits. So yeah, Kersmachers will continue on though. So he's doing pretty decent stint there as Thomas Harvey, race leader, also into the pits as well.
Yeah, Kersmacher's been bottled up behind Leonov for a little while there, and I bet he was relishing the opportunity to finally maybe get an overtake done, and then Leonov denies him the pleasure by heading into the pit lane. Here's Thomas Harvey then, coming out on circuit, narrowly ahead there of the car alongside. Just trying to work out how that's going. There's Dino Paolini, of course, in the royal blue racing car there in fourth. Thomas Harvey emerges out of the pit, still in third position. And there's Ivan Leonov, who is ahead of Michael Ayres, who himself is just alongside Alessandro Quintana right now. Quintana just leaving the pit lane, falling behind Ayres and Zubinski. Most of the drivers have now pitted. Yellows in Sector 2 again. Again, not sure exactly who those are for. But at the front, we have Kersmacher, Saracino, both yet to pit, and then it's Thomas Harvey, who is de facto our race leader. Yellows in Sector 1, that's another HG Esports Blue Ball. That was that Saracino going off. Oh, dear! What has happened there? He was just pootling along the side, and suddenly he was sent spinning round. It didn't look like there was another car that hit him, but his car reacted as though there had been.
So he's done the deck, he's done a Kintai, if you like, and he's just come straight. Oh, he's got suspension damage though.
Yeah.
He's got suspension damage, so he's crabbing. He's trying to stay out of the way. Look off on the right hand side, and I imagine.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, yeah, no, he has been hit. So that is Jukka-Pekka Lalu, is it? Who hits him there?
I think it might be, because Lalu was up there. So, yeah, that's bad news. And to be fair to Giuseppe, he couldn't do an awful lot there. He was as far off as he could be. That's just unfortunate circumstances. It's not nothing dangerous he did. He tried to keep out of the way with the damage, and he couldn't have done it anymore basically. So, but again, another victim of the Degner crash. Just getting a little bit wide onto the curb. We imagine we didn't quite see the start of it, but yeah, the drama. And look, you can see the dry lines actually starting to widen as people drive over it. But as soon as you get slightly offline, you're in trouble.
Yeah, it did look almost like a carbon copy of what we saw happening to Alessandro Quintana earlier on, but Quintana is still out there. His car whole enough, at least, for him to still be pushing, currently in 8th position. So his comeback doing relatively okay as things stand. He's been helped by other drivers falling by the wayside, of course, but he just set a purple first sector. So I think I'd be comfortable in saying that his car is not very damaged at all, and that just shows you it didn't look like there was a huge difference between his trip to the wall and that of Giuseppe Saracino. Saracino was much more affected by it. It kind of seemed like when he clipped the advertising board on the right-hand side, it sent him slightly back onto the circuit, and that is what led to the issue between himself and Jukka-Pekka Lalu. Lalu now down into 18th position after an extensive pit stop in this race, but he is still going, at least for a Royal Blue race.
It's incredible to think that 10 laps ago, if you'd have said that Ayres and Quintana would be 2 seconds away from each other, yeah, you would have looked at me and said, what on earth are you on about? Because they were so far apart. There goes Matthew Williams, and so defensive from Pascal Polens into turn 1, but really that was done way before the apex point. So good move from Matthew Williams up into P3. P2 net with Kersmacher still leading without pitting.
Yeah, Kersmacher's yet to pit. He currently has a 19-second or thereabouts margin to Matthew Williams, so he will come out behind Williams, Polenz, and Hamming, probably ahead of Ivan Leonov at the moment. That's going to be his target at least. He'll be in and around Leonov and Ayres, I would imagine, as we now see a bit of a train of cars formed behind Matthias Zubinski, who is currently the proud owner of 9th position in the Japanese Grand Prix. But we have Pascal Schmidt, Yannis Volborn, Sandeep Singh, Jack Mayer, and Dino Paolini all queuing up to try and take those 9th place honours away from.
Yeah, that's going to be a classic case of either Zabinski is going to pit and release them and all hell will break loose as Schmidt goes wide and Volborn goes side by side, so maybe we'll have all hell breaking loose already. But yeah, I mean, you just feel that unless Zabinski pits, it's going to be a case of one goes through and then the rest follow.
Kiersmaker's pits from the lead as Yannis Volborn is desperately trying to... He thought he was going to get a position. He's been struggling to not lose one since that point, as now he does indeed lose out to Sandeep Singh. He's not done yet as they head towards 130R, but rather sensibly he thinks better of it. And they'll just head into the braking zone for the Casio Triangle, all in lockstep with one another. Jack Mayer looking to try and be an agitator in that pack as well. Kiersmakers has emerged from the pit lane ahead of Michael Ayres, and there we do see the PLS car of Zubinski into the pit lane. Yannis Volborn following him in as well as Dino Paolini thinks of that move. That is actually Yannis Volborn's second pit stop of the race, by the way.
Yeah, it must be damage because there's no way that he's only done 11 laps on those medium tyres, surely. Otherwise, that's a big, big problem for him if he wants to be competitive for this race. So either that or he's just struggling with tyre wear, but Harvey's still 8.9 seconds ahead of Matthew Williams, so he's only lost a second through the pit stop phase, considering he went so much longer.
And Yannis Volborn, by the way, that was a 3.6 second pit stop. So if there was damage, it wasn't fixed in the pit lane. And, I mean, Razor GP have been very aggressive on strategy the whole way, as there's Pascal Schmidt making the mistake for TTF. Again, second time in as many laps he makes a mistake through the hairpin. And that has allowed at least Sandeep Singh through. Now, Jack Mayer wants to be given the same treatment. Pascal Schmidt will not be so generous, holding him back in 11th position for the time being, which is a godsend to Sandeep Singh, who will look to try and drive away from the stats behind. Of course, those two, the second drivers in their respective teams battling.
They got well out of shape, that's why Paolini's all over the back of him, and then Paolini's had to back out of it, and Mayer's got a slingshot. Incredible how that was yo-yo between the cars. It looked like Mayer was in all sorts of trouble. And now he's already back on the rear wing of the car in front, Pascal Schmidt. So, yeah, that's how much these dirty air can affect him. Now there's a DRS train trying to get past. Sandeep Singh has been given a bit of a freebie. That was tight.
That was tight. Dino Paolini just about avoiding the rear end of Jack Mayer, but really only just doing so. Yeah, Ivan Leonov, by the way, right there with Pascal Polenz in 4th and 5th at the moment, but Frank Hamming ahead of them. I think he is yet to pit in this race. So, although actually is Frank Hamming yet to pit? He's not.
He's not, but he went on to the same set of tyres. So, a bit of a different strategy from him. A bit of a different strategy. Might play against him towards the end of the race, but it's put him into P3 at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So he is driving a fantastic race thus far for HM Engineering. Started, I think, 12th on the grid, unless I'm mistaken, there or thereabouts. And now up into 3rd place on a set of soft tyres. Everyone around him, down to Alessandro Quintai, is on mediums, and Sandeep Singh is the next driver who's currently on softs. And Singh has 10 seconds of clean air with which to thrash those softs as hard as he would like to try and get a little bit closer to the sharp end of things in this Grand Prix.
Yeah, big slipstream from Paolini, and Mayer's just defended the middle of the road. It's pretty good defence from Jack. And then he gets the slingshot exactly like the last lap up to the back of Pascal Schmidt. So, and there's Quintai down the inside look. So Quintai gets past Kiersmakers as Leonov gets past Polenz. So two moves going on at the same time. Where did Polenz lose out to Leonov though, if it wasn't turn 1?
It looks like it might have been into sort of turn 3, the beginning of the S section there, as Jack Mayer also was able to get past Pascal Schmidt, who falls down into 11th and now has Dino Paolini for very close company. And Zubinski, so it's the fastest lap of the race, so 1:30.453 He, of course, pitted very recently. He's down in 16th at the moment, looking to catch up to Max Hammerlink, who currently has 15th position and 1 championship point available to him for that position. Here's Pascal Polenz, who pitted early. It was aggressive from Razor GP. And it's worked out relatively well for them, you'd have to say, but starting to fade at this stage of the stint, losing out more recently to Ivan Leonov, but also to Matthew Williams a few laps ago.
Yeah, they're really suffering from the fact that the track's drying out, because in those sort of treacherous conditions through qualifying at the start of the race, they looked really pacey, but as it dries out, they're starting to struggle a little bit more. Paolini might have had an issue.
Yeah, yellow. Oh, is that a
big issue?
Big issue, yeah. You can see tyre marks leading away from the curb that he was previously on, as he now DNFs in the pit lane. That will be it for Dino Paolini's race, and we'll see exactly how it happened here. Yeah,
so he's already a little bit wide in the turbulent air, and just a little bit of impatience, wide out of spoon, and a hefty hit into the barrier. But that all comes from frustration being stuck behind Schmidt. You've seen the two guys you're racing fly past him in the previous laps, and now you're stuck behind, and you can see your rivals getting smaller and smaller in the distance.
Yeah, the German becomes the 9th retiree from this race, as we're on lap 23 of 44. We've crested halfway, and at this rate, we're going to have a few people not redeeming point-scoring finishes at the back end. Only 3 drivers currently circulating outside of the points. Pekka Lalu, Jannes Volborn, and April Karlsvad in 16th, 17th, and 18th, respectively, at this time. Matthias Jubinski currently there in 15th for PLS, and the owner of that 1 championship point for the time being. Out at the very front, Thomas Harvey has only extended his gap to Matthew Williams. It's now 11.2 seconds for the TR Motorsport driver, who just set a purple middle sector on that last lap around, managing a 1:30.9. He is electric today, Thomas Harvey. Really very impressive.
After everything that's happened in this race so far, I'm not saying anything about him until he's crossed that line. Kintai is still hounding Michael Ayres, who's all over the back of Polenz. Polenz really aggressive with his defence. Ayres through to the inside. Now Polenz has got to get back onto the dry to make sure that Kintai doesn't get through. Great move from Michael Ayres, absolutely fearless, and really staunch defence from Pascal Polenz, who just hasn't got the pace at the moment.
Yeah, Ayres once again out here to prove himself, as he makes another move in his quest for redemption in this race. And of course, last time out in Singapore, he won that race in what I think is the most dominant race I have seen. Certainly the most dominant race I've seen in GPVWC. Maybe one of the most dominant races I've seen in sim racing as a whole. He was fantastic in Singapore. And Thomas Harvey is doing a similar thing, to a lesser extent thus far, but still a similar thing here in Japan.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest compliment you can ever give a driver is that you never see them on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
He's been pretty superb, and like you said, the gap keeps on growing. And the thing is Williams, yeah, he hasn't got to push or anything, but we've seen already this season he likes being out in front, as any good driver does. And yeah, he's just not able to do anything about it, is he?
Indeed not. And Jack Mayer, by the way, just lost out to Pascal Schmidt. Oh, the 10th position. Having got past Schmidt a few laps ago, surprising to see Mayer now struggling at this stage, but Schmidt is on mediums, Jack Mayer on soft.
He lost 2 seconds in the middle sector, so that'll be a mistake.
Okay, mistake then that allowed Pascal Schmidt through. Meanwhile, Pascal Polenz, his namesake, is in the pit lane for a fresh set of tyres. He goes back onto the softs. So he is echoing Jannes Volborn's strategy, actually different tyres here, actually the choice for Pascal Polenz, but both racers once again going aggressive, pitting early for the second stint as they did for the first.
Just wondering whether Jack might have gone wide into Spoon. It seems like the sort of least dangerous part of the track up there into the first part of Spoon. That's probably where he did have his little issue, and it's a shame because he was trying to follow Sandeep Singh, of course, with the Constructors' Championship in the balance. And and look why Pascal Schmidt. Pascal Schmidt is ringing that car around as fast as he can. He's on the edge every single time. We've seen him make a few mistakes into this hairpin, and he's gone wide again. He's really pushing as hard as he can. Maybe those medium tyres starting to scream enough now.
Yeah, possibly. Jack Mayer on the softs, looking to try and regain 10th position. Can't quite do so, though, into Spoon, and that is still one of the harder places. I mean, even in full dry conditions, that's one of the hardest places to overtake. That's still a possible overtaking opportunity. So Jack Mayer might do well to sit and wait for at least the Casio Triangle and probably turn 1 to try and get back past Pascal Schmidt for 9th position. On that last lap, Alessandro Quintai went very quickly. He went even faster than Thomas Harvey. Currently sitting in 6th position, Quintai closing back in on Michael Ayres, and there you see Pascal Schmidt, you're right about those tyres crying enough. He heads into the pit lane, and Jack Mayer continues on now with no one in front of him.
He's got really good speed considering the tyres he's on and how long he's been on the strategy he's doing. It's Frank Hammond. He's still right with Matthew Williams, even though he's been on those softs for a fair while now through the race. So this is really interesting to see what this strategy can do for him. If he's got this much speed, yellow flags out again. I think it's Quintai who's just dropped behind Kismak as it was at Degner again. Another problem at Degner for Quintai, and now he's got his teammate all over the back of him.
Yeah, and they see Sandeep Singh. Sandeep's on softs. Quintai is on mediums, so they might want to do a bit of a switcheroo here for Pescara. 7th and 8th as things stand in the race. Last time around, Quintai was the fastest car on track. He won't be this time around, though, with that mistake. And yeah, they have a grip on the top spot in the constructors' standings, but it's a bit of a tenuous one as we see what happened here to Alessandro Quintai heading into Dunlop.
It actually looks as if he's already lost a little bit of ground to Michael Ayres through the first part of the lap, because as you said, he was fastest. It's exactly the same. Look, it's exactly the
railroaded.
same.
Wow, that is an extraordinary sort of mistake.
Lucky guy.
Yeah, you could see when he got on the high part of the curb, he was just railroaded straight across that and just heading directly sort of perpendicular to the wall. Made contact with
what happened to Saracino earlier.
Yeah.
So he needs to go and get a lottery ticket. Get the Euro Million.
Absolutely, but he won't be thinking about that right now. He'll be cursing his luck, even if it is actually working in his favour, because he is still down there in 7th position. And the thing that he will really hate is the fact that Matthew Williams has not had any sort of issue thus far in this race. Both Quintai and Ayres have. Williams has been relatively imperious there in 2nd position. Not necessarily that quick, but very consistent indeed.
Yeah, I've got a bit of an apology to make because I was singing the praises of Frank Hammond. Look at Ivan Leonov right with him as well. So, fantastic racing from both of these guys who have been inconsistent so far this season. This is a Frank Hammond we know in the GPVWC. This is superb, and then Ivan Leonov following on as well. Great tussle for 2nd. Let's see how daring either of them are and will if attacked. Matthew Williams just sort of waved them through and go, yes, there you go.
Yeah, Frank Hamming. Oh, he makes a mistake. Oh, and that's going to give the opportunity for Ivan Leonov, who had to back out of it there. Frank Hamming showing him the door on the exit of the Casio Triangle. They'll have both lost time to Matthew Williams. And I wonder how much that DRS was pulling Frank Hamming along on those relatively second-hand soft tyres at this stage of the race. And we'll see whether he can close back into that DRS range or not. As he made that mistake, but didn't have to lose out to Ivan Leonov.
Now, a very interesting thing I saw just then is how much of the track is dry now. We're almost starting to get to the point, especially down into turn 1. You can see through Dunlop there as well. But at least 3/4 of the track are dry in certain places. That means we're going to get a bit more racing action, even than we've already seen. And to be fair, people have been so brave as it is already. See what the hairpin's like yet? Pretty drying out quite nicely. So a few more dive bombs towards the end of the race, I think.
Yeah, we'll be definitely looking to heat things up towards the very end of this one here in Suzuka. Now you see Frank Hamming just ahead of us. We're on board with Ivan Leonov. Frank Hamming currently sits 24th in the drivers' standings, 21 points to his name, a best finish of 8th. He's participated in every race thus far this season and only scored points in 5 of them. So this podium that he's currently on track for would be absolutely enormous, both for him and for HM Engineering, who themselves are currently 7th in the constructors' standings, but mainly thanks to the efforts of Vodka Hoekstra thus far in this season. Ivan Leonov here in 4th. He's down in 17th in the drivers' standings. A best finish of 6th back in Silverstone for him. He's managed a couple of 7th place finishes as well, but a 4th would take him up a notch in terms of the peak performance thus far this season.
Yeah, Frank, like I said, alluding to earlier, anyone who knows GPVWC, anyone who knows Frank's abilities, knows that this season is not a Frank Hammond. So great to see him back up the sharp end. Hopefully he can stay there for the rest of the race. Sandeep Singh just went with the fastest lap of the race at 1:30.3. The Piscaras are coming alive a little bit in this phase of the race. I mean, all of a sudden Kintai's up in P7, having seen what happened at the start of the race. I mean, he's been off twice. He's in P7. That's the speed the Piscaras have got. So, yeah, formation flying in 7th and 8th, and you know, I'd imagine they'd get up maybe ahead of Matteo Kersmakers with the pace they got, maybe ahead of theirs at some point. Let's see what they can pull out of the bag.
Yeah, I think Singh must have made a mistake a few laps ago, or in the last couple of laps, because when Kintai last went into the wall in Degna 2, he rejoined the track narrowly ahead of his teammate Sandeep Singh. Now, there's about 3.5 seconds of gap between them, despite the fact that Singh was 0.6 of a second faster last time around. So Singh must have lost that time somewhere, as Frank Hamming finally decides that he is done with that set of soft tyres. Into the pit lane he goes. As we enter lap 30 of 44, this will be mediums to the end for Frank Hamming. Michael Ayres into the pit lane just behind him as well.
Yeah, so Hamming, what Hamming might be able to do here, right, is he'll go out on his final set of tyres, which are the mediums. But he might be able to do the undercut on Matthew Williams, yeah. So watch this space. Obviously, everyone else will be faster at the end if they go onto the softs, because they've already completed their mandatory 2 compound running. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. Ayres look on the soft, so he's going to be flying along, trying to get ahead of Leonov, or at least catch up to the top 3.
Michael Ayres in that what was once an A6E racing car, now a mode, currently there in 10th position. Once again finds himself behind Pascal Polenz on track. He'll be wanting to make light work of the Razor GP, which pitted a few laps ago now. So Ayres should have a bit of a tyre advantage in terms of life, even if they are both on soft tyres at this stage of the race.
Yeah, and he's got to get on with it, but if he has any aspirations of getting up to your Leonovs, your Hammings, because there's a nice big gap there to make up about 3 or 4 seconds. So, and then of course if he can get up with those, he's going to be right on Matthew Williams as well, considering how much we've seen the undercut working. So big chance. Kintai now P5 because of the pit stop cycle behind Kersmakers, right on the back of Matteo Kersmakers as well. So let's see what Kintai can do, as we have, I think it's April Karlsvad rejoining from the pit lane.
Yeah, Leonov and Sandeep Singh both pitted on this lap. Leonov was in 3rd, having inherited it from, of course, Frank Hamming. Leonov actually comes out of the pits, I believe, ahead of Frank Hamming, as there is April Karlsvad trying to get out of the way of these cars. That's not an easy task to do at this stage of the race, but Frank Hamming has managed to get ahead of Idan Leonov just behind these guys as well. It was close between the two of them on the pit lane exit, but the Dutchman is ahead of the Bulgarian. Further behind them, it's Michael Ayres, who is now ahead of Pascal Polenz, flying as he rockets up to the rear wing of Hygo Poom in the TTF racing car. He's currently in 7th position, is the Estonian, but he is still got one more pit stop to make in this race, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, this is exactly now the point, the next 5 laps, where we're going to see who fizzles out where and what tyre strategy was the best all along. So we get yellows in sector 1 again, and I don't think anything too major. They're pretty much in straight away, so it would have been a small mistake as Ayres goes up into P7 past Hygo Poom.
Yeah, Ayres making light work of Hygo Poom, who then loses it in the background. So yeah, Hygo Poom maybe just took his eye off the ball when he allowed Ayres to pass him and made that little mistake there. That's a shame for him, because he's been driving a relatively solid race thus far, on track for some decent points still in this one. Alessandro Kintai pits then from 4th position. Matthew Williams has just pit ahead of them as well. Thomas Harvey still leads the way, but yeah, he leads the way from Matteo Kersmakers in 2nd. And then Matthew Williams will come out back ahead of Frank Hamming still. Hamming set the fastest lap of the race, but it wasn't enough to overhaul the margin between himself and Matthew Williams. Some good in-laps from Williams keeps him ahead of the Dutchman and in third position at the moment.
Yeah, really good in-lap from Matthew Williams. He was only 4 tenths down in Sector 1. He was only 3 tenths down in Sector 2. Really saved his P2 there. So, yeah, stunning in-lap from Williams. Turned it up when he needed to. Yeah, 7 tenths sounds like a big gap, but we've seen already that we've been 1.52 seconds on the undercut. So, massive Volbon into the pits again. His race has just unravelled, hasn't it, for Yanis, especially compared to his teammates. So, don't know whether he's just struggled with a bit more tyre wear in that Razor, but yeah, surprised to see him 3-stopping.
Yeah, it's not often when you see a Razor up towards the top end of the points. It's not often that it's not Yanis Volborn. But on this occasion, it's Pascal Polans who is flying the flag for the team in orange and blue. Michael Ayres just set the fastest lap of the race. He's the first driver in this race to have made it into the 129s. And he's gone comfortably into the 129s with a 129.4, and he's going faster yet again. He's right up there with Ivan Leonov and Frank Hamming now, and those guys are right on the rear wing of Matthew Williams. So remember when Ayres got past Matthew Williams right at the beginning, he's looking to try and do so again towards the end of this one. Here's Alessandro Quintai, though, who's trying to get past Max Hammerlink, the German in the Neptune, still out there, still chugging around in 9th position. But he's losing out here to Alessandro Quintai, who's going to be able to take this move away down the main straight, you'd have to imagine, with the help of the DRS. He is going to have the inside line into turn 1 and takes the position away from Hammerlink, who's getting swamped by Pescaras at this moment in time.
Yeah, I thought Singh was going to lose a front wing there, sneaking his nose down the inside into turn 2. Now he's got all of the pain of sitting behind Max up through the S's. As we get to Leonov in this trainer car. So Williams P3 at the moment with Kurzmacher yet to pit. Then Hamming, Leonov, and now Michael Ayres. This could get really tasty. We know how fast they look at Whirling. The thing Ayres has got going on.
Ayres lost so much time earlier on and track positions as well. He's made up those track positions and he's made up that time almost entirely. There's 2 cars between himself and Matthew Williams. If he can finish ahead of Matthew Williams in this race, even while making that massive mistake that he did earlier on, that lost him so much time, Michael Ayres, I think, will see that as a victory in and of itself, to be able to overhaul that kind of margin to the man who has won 6 races thus far this season in the form of Matthew Williams. Now, Ivan Leonov looks likely to try something with Frank Hamming here. Frank had a little bit of a rough time through the Casio Triangle, and that is going to give the opportunity for Leonov to go to the inside of turn 1, and he makes that move stick. Frank Hamming offered nothing in defense, could not hold the Bulgarian back, and now his eyes will be firmly flicked to those rear view mirrors to take a look at the charging Michael Ayres just behind.
Exactly as we predicted with the tyre strategy, those medium tyres are not doing Frank Hamming any favours in this final stint of the race, and the guys who are absolutely blitzing it now on low fuel and soft tyres are starting to make it look a little bit easy against him. So, but you know, don't panic. You've still got a gap behind Ayres, then 8 seconds back to Pascal Polans. You know, if Ayres goes through, don't fight it too hard and pick up your top 6. Happy days.
Yeah, and of course with those medium tyres, going to struggle to keep Michael Ayres, the fastest car on track right now, at bay for too much longer. Not into spoon for Ayres.
He's got to get it done now, though.
Exactly. The cars ahead, Williams and Leonov, they're starting to build a bit of a margin to Frank Hamming, who's struggling at this stage of the race with his medium tyres. So Michael Ayres will feel desperate to get past him into the Casio Triangle. He's got a good opportunity as he's right with him through 130R. Into the braking zone off the triangle, he stays behind. He wants the DRS and the run down for a clean overtake into turn 1. And he should be able to find that granted to him. Thomas Harvey just set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:29.1. He is still flying at the front of this one. But here comes Michael Ayres, DRS open to the inside, and Frank Hamming allows him through.
Look how much more speed they're able to take through turn 1 now that the track's dried out completely as well. Absolutely full commitment from Michael Ayres. Thomas Harvey just showing off at the front at the moment. That's a ridiculous lap time, 1:21.1. Pascal Polans is in the pits. Surprised to see that, but Pascal Polen's in the pit, so maybe it is just a razor problem with tyre wear. Maybe they have just had to make 3 stops, because that was a fairly normal pit stop as well for Pascal Polen's. So he's come out in P10 behind Jack Mayer, so both stacks in the top 10 now. Jack Mayer doing a nice job getting up through the field. But yeah, shame for Razor, it all looked so good early on.
No, I wonder if they had some kind of setup designed to get heat into the tyres for the wet conditions. Maybe that's slightly backfired on them when it came to the race itself, maybe struggling to keep those tyres in check. That's all hypothetical, of course. But both of them have made 3 stops in this race, and I think they are the only drivers to do so, at least, that haven't had any kind of major damage to repair in this one. Here's Ivan Leonov sending it to the inside into the Casio Triangle, and he's ahead of Matthew Williams. Ivan Leonov take a bow. It's not often you overtake the runaway championship leader when you're in a Revo racing car, but Ivan Leonov has managed it. Now down into turn 1, he's got to defend because Williams is coming back at him with the DRS. Williams tucks back in for a switchback, can't find it. Ivan Leonov up into 3rd position to try and chase down Matteo Kiersmakers ahead. Kiersmakers, by the way, he's on medium tyres that he's been on for a while. He's only pitted once in this race. He might be going all the way to the end on this set.
I was just about to say that. I've been saying that he's yet to pit. Actually, he got into lap 20-something on his soft tyres at the start. It's doable, the 1 stop. It's really doable, and he's actually, he's lapping not too badly. What, 1.4 seconds off the pace of Harvey and Leonov at the moment? Not a disaster on those tyres, and as long as he can save a little bit to defend with at the end of the race, he could get himself a nice finish.
Look at Ayres now. He senses weakness in that stacks up ahead. He's seen Ivan Leonov take a bite, take a chunk out of it. And now Ayres will want to do the exact same thing down into turn 1 on this coming lap. Williams, for his part, he'll be wanting to make sure that he maintains his DRS grip on Ivan Leonov up ahead. And the Bulgarian will see no sense in dropping him, you'd have to imagine. Of course, apart from the fact that he needs to close down Matteo Kiersmakers, Ayres thought about it there briefly into the braking zone. As we head into the chicane now, round through the final corner. It looks like Williams got a better run on this occasion. I'd be surprised if Ayres can get close enough. They both have DRS, as Leonov hasn't dropped Williams to outside of a second just yet. And Ayres sticks in there in 5th for now, but it's only a matter of time, you have to feel, before Williams is under even more pressure from the man currently 2nd to him in the overall standings.
Yeah, great battle this is going to be, and again, fantastic job from Michael Ayres to get back into contention for the podium. But yeah, Leonov set about chasing after Matteo Kiersmakers, only 8/10 faster on the last lap, but that's a massive difference to the 1.4 from the lap previous to that one, so maybe Kiersmakers has got a chance here.
Yeah, we will see. There's still trying to stick with Williams, and actually it seems like there's a lapped car coming up ahead of these guys as well. That might cause some chaos. Not sure who that is.
I think it's a Cosmo.
It might be April Karlsvard, the 2 Cosmos, Menoclont, April Karlsvard, 16th and 17th at the moment. Menoclont carrying the pit lane, so that will be April Karlsvard up ahead. April's done a good job of getting out of the way of cars on a couple of occasions thus far this race, and we'll see whether these ones are going to have as much of an issue or not.
Polenz is dropping. He was 10th, he's just dropped behind Poom and Hamlin. So, yeah, Razor's race going from bad to worse.
We enter lap 38 for these cars. Matthew Williams still just about has that DRS, or not just about, he really has that DRS on Ivan Leonov. Ever since Leonov got past Matthew Williams, he's not been able to break away, but Williams makes a little bit of a mistake through turn 1 there. Slight correction for him. And oh, that almost opened the door for Michael Ayres. He's there immediately. Whenever Williams makes the slightest mistake, Ayres will be there. And that's got to be playing in the back of the mind of Williams as he tries to get this stacked home to the end of the race ahead of Michael Ayres. Thomas Harvey still absolutely imperious out at the front. Got a comfortable margin to Kiersmakers, but that gap's not really growing between the two of them. It's growing a little bit, but not by such a huge amount as you might expect, and that's just testament to how well Kiersmakers is holding on to that set of tyres in the Zederik. Leonov trying to close him down, struggling to do so. There's Karlsvard getting out of the way as they run down towards Spoon.
Yeah, good job from April there. Really, really good heads-up driving. and allowing these guys to continue the battle that they're on. And actually, Ayres making up a nice little bit of time through the midpoint of Spoon, but Leonov doing a fantastic job, it has to be said. But only half a second faster. That deficit each lap between Leonov and Kersmakers is getting smaller and smaller. That might just be Leonov's tyres starting to fall off. And that might be why we're starting to see Williams and Ayres sticking with him.
Yeah, now will Williams have a go at Leonov into turn 1? Has the DRS advantage on the Revo? I don't think he's close enough on this occasion though. And the longer it stays like this, the harder it's going to be for Ayres to make that move on Matthew Williams that he will so desperately desire. So, a bit of a stalemate starting to form over 3rd, 4th and 5th positions as we rapidly approach the end of this race. Just 5 laps to go now in this one. Frank Hamming has fallen well away from these cars. Kintai and Singh, the 2 Pescaros, still just poodling around. Well, I shouldn't say poodling. They're going very quickly, but they are down in 7th and 8th, not where they would like to be. Jack Mayer in the next stacks. He's got a 22-second gap up to Sandeep Singh, so I don't think he's going to be able to overhaul any more points for stacks in the team standings.
No, Kintai's going to be right with Frank Hamming by the end of this race. He is so much faster on those tyres that he's got in the Pescara, so it could get even worse for stacks.
And that's, I think they're still on track, just about to outscore Pescara as things stand, but they need to be outscoring them by a relatively comfortable margin. They still will have chances in the last couple of races. As I mentioned earlier, 19 points currently separating Stacks in 2nd and Pescara in 3rd. Pescara on 302 championship points, Stacks 283. 3rd place team is this team right here. What was 86E Racing for most of the season, now Mode. Michael Ayres, their flagship driver, along with Amari Watson at this stage of the season. And they are just about 42 points behind Stacks down in 3rd.
Yeah, both Williams and Ayres absolutely clouting the curve into the final chicane. Just trying to find every little inch that they can, but I'm not sure they actually profited too much from it. Apologies if you already mentioned it, but Pascal Schmidt, who was running so well for much of the races, retired in the recent laps as well. So yeah, plenty of retirements. Only 2 drivers not going to score. They're both the Cosmos at the moment, but it just proves why you've got to keep yourself clean, because so often in Superleague Lights in these sort of changeable conditions, if you finish a race, you'll probably score a point.
And honestly, that's perhaps a little bit indicative of the way this season has gone for Cosmo Powerworks. 2 cars outside the points, and it is both of those cars at the moment. But there is still time in this race, and they are a long way off the back of the field. But if anyone else retires, Menno Klomp will be on track to maybe score a point towards the end of this one. Matthew Williams has Michael Ayres for very close company as we run down towards 130R. To the inside goes Ayres, and he takes it away. Fantastic stuff from Michael Ayres as he relegates Matthew Williams to 5th position. Williams clunks the curbing as Ayres got a little bit deep into the first part of the Casio Triangle. Will that open the door back for Matthew Williams down into turn 1? They both have DRS, but he's very close behind with the slipstream. He's getting even closer. Ayres goes defensive, switches back to the racing line, but Williams wasn't alongside, so he's okay to do so. And Michael Ayres now back ahead of Matthew Williams. He passed him very early on in this race, and then he spun out, fell down the order, lost a whole bucket load of time, and now he's made it all up and passed Matthew Williams again.
Yeah, and as Williams and Stacks lose points with Ayres going through, Kintai another second out of Frank Hamming's deficit. So yeah, Pescara looking to be sitting pretty at the moment as Williams slips down the order. He was 2nd at one point, remember, now he's 5th. Kersmakers, by the way, only 2 seconds ahead, give or take, from Leonov. So Leonov is on a charge.
Yeah, and he's taking Michael Ayres along with him and Matthew Williams. So Kersmakers, if those tyres completely give up, as they're only going to get worse towards the end of this race, if they completely give up in these last few laps, he could well find himself losing out to both Leonov and Ayres and probably Matthew Williams as well. 1.5 seconds. There you see the gap with your very own eyes on our screen. And Leonov is closing in on Kersmakers for 2nd position. 2nd position would be the best result of the season for both Kersmakers and Leonov. Leonov hasn't managed a podium thus far, so he would very much like third as well. But second would be even sweeter. Kiersmakers has had a third place finish thus far this season, so second would be what he needs to raise his bar for his PB.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people having an absolute stormer of a night as well, so yeah, I mean, great racing throughout. We said at the start of the race that we were expecting the overtaking to be difficult with the conditions, but we've been treated to an absolute barnstormer, and it's still going. Look at this battle, still continuing as they close up to the back of Mateo Kiersmakers. DRS will be in range this time around, there's no doubt about it.
Absolutely. As Leonov just cresting that 1 second margin right now, as Ayres got very close to him there in the braking zone of the hairpin at the apex. But Leonov still keeping Ayres at arm's reach for the time being. He will find it even easier to do so now that he's getting into that DRS range of Mateo Kiersmakers. Definitely going to provide him with an extra little bit of a buffer down to Ayres and Williams, the two probably fastest drivers over the course of this season in the whole field. And Ivan Leonov, who sits 17th in the driver's standings, trying to keep them both at bay. And on the other hand, trying to take a position away from 6th place man in the standings, Mateo Kiersmakers.
Yeah, so what do you do now if you're Matthew Williams? If you get into a 3-wide situation, are you trying to find them points?
Hold on. If I'm Matthew Williams right now, I'm trying to take the position away from Michael Ayres around the outside into turn 1. Ayres firmly shows him the door on the inside. There was still plenty of space on the track. No harm done by either driver. But Williams couldn't manage to brave it out around the outside on that occasion. But the fact that he could have a go at Ayres when Ayres had DRS on Leonov, that's nervous for the Mode Racing team.
Yeah, that answers my question. I was about, or partway through asking, is do I take a risk or not? The answer is yes, I do, clearly, because running outside of turn 1, when you weren't ahead, he was coming from behind, and he wasn't ahead at any point. It was really brave. So yeah, he's taking the risk. He wants this. He knows he's got the buffer in the drivers, but he needs the points for Stack. Surely he, points are better than no points. So he's still got so much. What's happened to Michael Ayres all of a sudden?
Michael Ayres with a twitch there in Spoon as well, and he's falling outside of DRS range. This could be major for the reversal of the momentum between these two drivers. Ayres crests back within that 1 second margin, but only just. As they run down towards the Casio Triangle, it's going to be very, very close once we get down to that braking zone. Williams might even think about a move into the braking zone. No, he does not. As Thomas Harvey sets the fastest lap of the race again with a 1:29 flat, but this is where the action is. You can see how much better of an exit Williams just got. Ayres has been struggling through the Casio Triangle lap after lap, and he struggled again. He did have his DRS wide open, so that's going to give him something here in the battle with Matthew Williams. Once again, it's Williams to the outside. This time he does manage to get his nose ahead, and there's contact. Major contact between the two of them. They're basically glued together. They get going again, but both off track. And they lose out to Frank Hamming, who's able to capitalize. And all of a sudden, it's Alessandro Quintai. Of our 3 championship contenders, is it going to be Alessandro Quintai that finishes in front? He's right there with them now.
Yeah, and Quintai have so much better tyres with both of them sliding about. Incredible. You could see it coming as soon as they were still side by side after the first king, because Ayres gets onto...
He's off again. He's off. He's lost it. Ayres is gone. Ayres is out and into the wall. And is he out of the race? He might just be. He let Williams and Quintai through. We're on the final lap of this race. And Michael Ayres, who made a mistake earlier on, was atoning for it beautifully, falls by the wayside at the very end at this one. Heartbreak for him and for Mode. As Thomas Harvey, no such heartbreak for him. He rounds the final few corners to claim a very dominant win here in Suzuka, our second dominant win in a row. And Thomas Harvey did it in changeable conditions. His second win of the season. Congratulations to him. But right behind is Leonov, who hasn't had enough time to displace Kiersmakers for second. So Matthew Kiersmakers, pulling off the one stop, manages to crawl home to second position. His best result of the season. Leonov gets his best result, and Quintai in the final corner. Quintai, how about that? Loses it in the final corner. He wasn't ahead of Williams, so he only lost out to Sandeep Singh, his teammate in the end. but that might just be the epitome of the season for Alessandro Quintai. Now here's Jack Mayer trying to hold off Hygo Poom at the death. Is Hammerlink also having a look at Pascal Polenz? The battling is not done anywhere. It's happening everywhere you look on this final lap. Hammerlink couldn't do it. And that'll be Polenz coming through in 10th. Hammerlink in 11th. Jukka-Pekka Laulu is going to manage a 12th place finish behind these guys. We'll see a replay then of Michael Ayres and Matthew Williams, a controversial incident.
Yeah, I could see it happening. Like I said, they stuck together through turn 1 and then into turn 2. It was always going to be momentum coming from Matthew Williams. Ayres kept alongside. I said Singh was lucky earlier, and that's why Ayres has gone off a Degner. He's got damage, probably from the contact on his front left wheel. So Williams thinks he's got the move done. You can't see Ayres on the right hand side all of a sudden. Yeah, the mode comes back across. It's quite a hefty hit actually. Williams lucky to get away with that. There goes Hammond through, and I imagine Ayres has just tried to carry on with a bit of damage. He's going to catch the grass on the left hand side. I called it as we saw it, and yeah, there he goes. And it snapped the other way. So dramatic, and also can tie at the end as well. Absolutely mad final lap. Yeah. Just when you thought you'd seen everything happened with all three of the title rivals.
And if you ask Thomas Harvey, there was no madness whatsoever. Calm race for him and for TR Blue Boss Motorsport as he takes the win from pole position. But everything behind shows you how crazy this race was. Matteo Kiersmakers and Ivan Leonov round out the podium, both of them achieving their best result of the season. Same for Frank Hanning, who managed 4th after the demise of Williams and Ayres. Matthew Williams came home in 5th as the sun shined on him just about at the very end. Sandeep Singh 6th, Alessandro Quintai 7th, Jack Mayer in 8th, Hygo Poom 9th, and Pascal Polenz rounding out the top 10. Max Hammerlink in 11th in his first race of the season. Jukka-Pekka Laulu down in 12th after he collected Giuseppe Saracino early on. Michael Ayres actually finishes 13th and is classified because he completed more of the race distance than Matthias Jubinski, who finished in 14th. Janis Volborn 15th to round out the final points. And then you have Menno Klont and April Karlsvard, our final 2 finishers in the Cosmo Powerworks cars. Then you have the DNFs, Pascal Schmidt, Dino Paolini, Giuseppe Saracino, Amari Watson, Stefano Zanrosso, Deegan Fairclough, Tom Voss, Dower Tapper, Pavel Andrzejewski, and Moritz Kropp. And so, with that, our race comes to its conclusion, and we will get some driver interviews for you in here in just a moment's time. Who have we got to speak to here?
Oh, we've got, at the moment, I'll tell you what, we'll drive Matteo Kiersmakers. For me, unfortunately for Thomas Harvey, driver of the day, Matteo Kiersmakers, with his alternate strategy. Matteo, that was stunning, Matteo, with the one-stop. Just to talk us through the race from your point of view.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you. Yeah, to be honest, at the beginning of the race, the strategy was always to go with a 2-stop. I didn't even try 1-stop because I had to go too slow. But I had the feeling, because I was only P9 at the start and P8 after the first corner, I think, that I was going to be stuck behind some people, which I knew I was normally faster, so I could save tires a bit more. And then I saw, okay, I can do maybe 17, 18 laps, and I think I extended to even 19 laps the first stint. So I thought, yeah, let's go for it. I think I decided like 9 laps in the first stint.
It's a very early decision, and it paid off for you in spades. 2nd place finish, your best of the season. And of course, you have managed 2 podiums thus far this season, back in Azerbaijan and Belgium, your home Grand Prix, of course, as well. Did this one feel better? Did this one feel like your best race of the season, as the result suggests?
Yeah, the race was very solid. I mean, I think I only made one mistake in the opening laps when I went in spoon a bit too wide over the curb, and then I think I lost about 2-3 positions or something there. But for the rest, the race was just very good. We had very good pace, and I think the pace advantage is what got me P2 in the end. Because if I started at the front and I could do a 2-stop, maybe I could have gone for a victory. But yeah, qualifying was a bit too bad for that.
And it's been a bit of an up and down season for you in general. In general, your qualifying has tended to be your strength. But in these last few races, last 4 races, if we look at them now, 3rd place in Belgium, 10th place in Italy, 4th in Singapore, and now a 2nd here. That's some very good results. Have you found something that's helped you turn a corner in the latter stages of this season? Or is it just things falling more in your favor in terms of fortune?
I think it's on one hand a little bit of more luck, but on the other hand it's also experience. I mean, I don't really have that much online racing experience. Back in the old days it was offline and those kind of things. So the online racing is still a bit new for me, as last year I started with Super Cup. And I think the experience makes me a little bit more calm during the race, so I think that helps for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for the interview, and congratulations on your 2nd place finish.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening.
Let's bring the race winner in.
Hello.
Hello, well, Thomas Harvey, welcome, and congratulations on what has been a very dominant racing in Japan. How are you feeling?
Very good. I'm not gonna lie, I was not expecting that. Going into it, I think I knew the pace would be decent, but I wasn't expecting to have a race-winning pace necessarily. Just looking to get a solid top 5, top 6 result. But yeah, in the end, with the changeable conditions, played into me a little bit. Some of the faster guys weren't quite where they could have been, and I guess just did it when it mattered, and from there made the race much easier for me. So yeah. Not sure what to think right now. Probably not sank in, but yeah, feeling pretty good about it.
I mean, you say that you're going to ascribe it up to, other drivers, some of the best drivers not getting exactly where they wanted in qualifying, but you spent most of the race with Matthew Williams directly behind you, and you built a 12-second margin to he who has won 6 races thus far this season and is comfortably top in the driver's standings. That's got to feel pretty good. That's some good racing as well from yourself.
I'm not. I mean, it may be downplaying a little bit, but the pace was solid. But yeah, for whatever reason, Matthew Williams wasn't his normal self. I mean, could have had a more wet setup. Could have been just not practicing much, knowing that he had the championship fairly easy. I'm not sure, but yeah, either way, it was a weird race, really. Again, just not expecting to be in that position, and then just sort of being quite comfortable in the end. It was a weird one, but again, I'll take it. 2nd race win, 1st pole in Superleague Lights, and yeah, I guess I'm just good to get another good result.
Yeah, 2 wins under your belt now, 3 podiums total thus far this season, and that pole. What are we to expect for you then in the final couple of races in the USA and Brazil?
Not sure. Got all bad engines out of the way, so good engines the rest of the season. Only 2 races left. Don't know exactly when I'm going to get, if I'm going to get upgrades, but we're in the season, so it shouldn't be too much of a loss if we have nothing for USA. But in general, just looking to, I guess, finish the season high, have a bit of fun. I don't know where exactly I am in the championship wise, but in general, I'm not too bothered. I'm just trying to have some fun race, I guess, till the end of the season, and see what comes from there next season.
Yeah, with this race win, I believe you will have actually taken, I think, either 5th or 6th in the standings, depending on whether Kiers Mackers is ahead or behind you. But either way, it'll be very close between the two of you, and you'll have jump-frogged Jukka-Pekka Lalu as well. So congratulations then on the win, and here's to a couple of great races to round off the season as well.
Yeah, just going to pick up, though, because you're saying that you downplayed it, Thomas. You did a 128.9 on the last lap, mate. I mean, come on.
Oh, no, I'm not denying the pace was good, but, I'm just saying.
We know that trick, Tom.
I know it's hard to say, really, because, obviously everyone's mysterious about their pace going to it, and then in the actual race, not having a direct threat, and with the changeable conditions, it was just an odd race, so it's hard to say, but, yeah. I mean, I'm just happy for the result.
It was stunning. So. It was stunning drive. Congratulations, Jacob. We're bringing Ewan Gale in. This is a lovely surprise.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at it. Ewan, how are you feeling after that one?
Hello. Good evening. Feeling it's really great, yeah.
Absolutely. Your best result of the season, your first trip to the podium. Is this a track that you always knew that you would be able to reach another level at? Do you like it here at Suzuka?
Yeah, I love Suzuka, and I'm really happy that I did this result. And I want to thank you to Colin Spork for engineering me this race, and it was really important for this race in these mixed conditions in qualifying, then in race, and we managed to do great race, great strategy, and podium. Yeah, deserved podium.
Absolutely. And that podium, obviously, it is your first of the season. Are we expecting any more in the final couple of races of this season?
Yeah, it's first, and I'm not sure that can drive in next races because I will go to university in another town, and maybe driving will be really difficult for me. I will try to do it, but I didn't know it. Yeah, we'll see.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully we'll be able to have you, but obviously going to university, a pretty understandable cause. Ewan, any further questions from you?
No, just a stunning drive. I think we've seen from even that, the pace has been there and misfortune has hit over the last few seasons, but great to see the podium finally come. So congratulations to you, Ewan.
Thank you very much.
Jacob, we'll just quickly bring in from the final lap Michael Ayres, because this could be quite an interesting one to listen to.
All right. Hello, Michael Ayres. How are you feeling? Commiserations after that end, of course.
Yeah, thanks. No, I'm feeling okay. Yeah, I mean, I kind of got lucky with the rain, the fact that it was a wet race, or I guess just the mixed conditions helped our car more than anything. And then I kind of went through the field quite quickly in the first stint, and I'm feeling quite good. And then as I started to struggle with understeer, I then dipped a wheel on the wet patch and spun off, and then tried to make way back through the rest of the race, and then obviously that collision on the last lap. Obviously that's I guess that's the main talking point of everyone at the moment. But at the end of the day, it's racing. There's no one at fault for that, I don't think. So it's it was bound to happen at some point. So I'm just going to put it that way.
Fair enough. Well, well, thank you for saying anything at all about it. There's many people who wouldn't want to say anything whatsoever, so I appreciate that. And so obviously that more or less calls to a halt, I believe, the championship contention at the top of the drivers' standings. So commiserations for that. But in these final two races, are these tracks you're looking forward to in both USA and Brazil?
Brazil, yes. USA, not really. Yeah, that's pretty simple, really.
Fair enough.
Brazil would be pretty cool, I think.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll make sure to keep an eye on you there. You and any further questions from you?
No, I think you covered it all, Jacob. I think you covered it all.
All right. Well, thank you for talking to us, Michael, even after that disappointing end to your race. And hopefully we'll see you back at it in the USA, doing better than you seem to think you'll be able to do there.
Thank you, guys.
All right. So, and thank you all very much for watching as well. I believe that calls to an end our interviews for the day. So we'll be wrapping up the show here. I've been Jacob Hancox. Alongside me in the commentary box has been Ewan Gale. And Tom Stevens has been on the cameras, bringing you all the action, replays included. So big thanks to him, big thanks to Ewan, big thanks to you guys for all watching, and we all wish you a good evening.